Now, it's been a great pleasure. You might have seen him before earlier when Tim Lafferty gave a shout out to Tom Whitehouse, who's our partner, helping develop the SEG reports, but you might not have seen his alter ego, which is Super Tom. So welcome back to the stage, Tom Whitehouse.
Thank you very much, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Oh, I need a microphone. Hang on.
Lecter.
Oh, Lecter. Can't be a superhero if you can't be heard. Yeah, I'm Tom Whitehouse. I'm a contributing editor at Global Corporate Venturing, and I'm chairman of an advisory business called LEIF. Why am I dressed today as a superhero? To be exact, I'm a hybrid superhero. I am half Superman, half Batman. I'll put my Batman mask on. Hang on. It's because we're going to be talking about flying cars. Oh, we're going to be talking about flying cars and autonomous vehicles. So I think we need to get back to our childhood visions to understand partly what is driving the development of these incredible technologies, incredible business models. And I've done a bit of research, some enjoyable research. And in last year's film, Superman versus Batman, The Dawn of Justice, Superman he's essentially a flying car with very good sense and avoid capabilities. And Batman, in his Batmobile, which is only semi-autonomous, by the way, it's not a fully autonomous vehicle yet, they come to blows, they come to a near mortal conflict before they realize that they should actually collaborate and co-invest and defeat evil. So in Airbus ventures versus Qualcomm ventures in the next half an hour, the denouement, I think, will be less violent and spectacular. That's what I'm predicting, because they're friends and they've co-invested and what have you. But we will see some significant differences, I think, in visions of the future of urban transportation. Qualcomm Ventures has been one of the most successful corporate VCs in the autonomous vehicle space. Their investment in cruise automation really helped establish that market as a very investable area when cruise automation was bought by GM. Jason wasn't involved in that deal, I should stress. Jason is based here in Europe and looking at European investment opportunities. Airbus Ventures, meanwhile, is very much explaining and setting out this vision they're calling urban air mobility, in which I think we will see flying vehicles a lot sooner than many of you think. So with that brief introduction, I would like to ask Francois and Jason to come and join me, and I'll take off the mask because I think you've got the idea, and I can't see very well without it on.
Congratulations. All right, how are we sitting? So, have a seat?
Yeah.
Since we're just going to have a chat.
Francois, would you like to go first?
Well,
Slides you can see in front of you.
I cannot cope with your status. I mean, I'm very far from being a Superman. So anyway, thank you for the floor. Just maybe as a very, very short introduction, first, I will never fight against Qualcomm Ventures, for sure. My intention is to co-invest friendly, which we have already done. So just a quick word of introduction about Airbus Venture, because we were created recently. We were created in January 2016. Basically, we are a VC fund with one LP, which is Airbus. The reason why I say that is because the governance of the fund has been designed to be autonomous from Airbus. There is an investment committee, 3 members only, and provided that we are within the fields which have been negotiated with Airbus and which you can see, and which, by the way, autonomy, that's to say, in fact, urban air mobility and electricity are key pieces of those themes. So provided that we are within those themes, provided that we are at the maturity which has been negotiated, which is an early stage, and within the financial limits, we take decision without even informing Airbus. So this allows really quick decision-making and autonomous decision-making, and the reason is because we co-invest with VCs. So this is for Airbus Ventures. What we have done up to now around the key themes which I have mentioned, so autonomy, we have made already a few investments. Some we cannot disclose, by the way, but at least 3 can be a good illustration of what we are meaning by autonomy. The first one is Local Motors, which is a company which I would say crowdsource the development of an autonomous car and land car and 3D printed it. Second example is AirMap. By the way, we co-invested with Qualcomm on this one, which is a company which is providing optimization tool for the management of UAVs, very, very clever apps. Third example is Best Mile. It's a Swiss company, which is a cloud-based, in fact, solution for managing both autonomous and manned land vehicles. So these are some examples. In the other fields, I will not elaborate because it's not the key topic for today. And last but not least, the team. It's a small team. The fund is only $150 million. And basically, we are in 2 geographic areas. We are in the US with one part of the team, the left part of the team, I would say here. We are in the Silicon Valley, and this team covers the US. And then there is another part of a team in Paris, and here we cover the rest of the world, which is small, of course, compared to the Silicon Valley, but still quite large in terms of, I would say, geographic spread. So that's it.
Great. Over to you, Jason.
All right. Hi, everybody. Jason from Qualcomm. I didn't actually make any Qualcomm Ventures slides, so I'll just give you a quick overview of who we are and what we do. So Qualcomm is a very large wireless chipset company, if you don't know the business. Ventures Group has been around for 17 years. There are 20 of us investing globally. We're investing approximately $200 million on an annual basis, US, Europe, India, China, Israel, Korea, and Brazil. And we're investing in all things wireless. So I tend to explain it as the next wave of wireless, which of course autonomous or connected vehicles form part of that. I'm not actually an expert on autonomous vehicles. I don't profess to be. But anyway, I was asked to join this panel. I do spend a lot of time looking at autonomous these days. I think this slide, you can't actually see the detail, and that's part of the reason of the slide. You can see all of the logos that are all happening in the last 12 months, right? So it's a gold rush right now around autonomous vehicles and autonomous software, and there's another version of Cruise that gets funded every fifth minute. And of course, I'm spending, I would say 90% of my time trying to fill out this chart some more, add some more logos to it. For those of you that aren't really used to talking about autonomous vehicles and the taxonomy, level 0 is what we have today. You get in the car and you drive it yourself. Level 5 is completely autonomous. There is no steering wheel. There is no gas pedal. There's a sofa, a television, and a remote control. You sit back and enjoy the ride and have no input whatsoever in the process. So most of these investments are trying to get us to level 5 as quickly as possible. And I think we'll talk about some of the inherent problems or challenges that face level 5. And again, you're not supposed to see the detail on this slide. It's just to give you an idea of where some of the funding activity is happening. These aren't necessarily our deals. Some of our deals are on here. But we're interested in both existing cars and doing retrofit and infrastructure. So NAVD is a heads-up display that's basically mixed reality that helps you drive better and more safely. Cruise is a retrofit solution to take an existing vehicle and help make it autonomous. And then at the bottom, you can see some of the level 4 and level 5 activity that's happening. And these are some pretty big checks that are being written as well. So a lot of funding going into the space. That's it.
Excellent. So Francois, if I could pick up on your presentation and on some of the conversations we've had over the last few weeks. The opportunity you're identifying is particularly around low-altitude space. And low-altitude space, unlike the roads of the streets of London and of most other large cities, is uncrowded. And so you see that, correct me if I'm wrong, as an opportunity.
Yes. Well, basically, I'm sure that everybody in this room is fully aware of the potential transformation of the, I would say, urban environment. We are at the beginning of a revolution, really, of the transformation of this environment. Within this environment, what is still probably available as an option of freedom is the air, low altitude. What do we mean by flying car? Because there are a lot of, I would say, excitement about that. But some definition, I think, could be helpful. First, it's clearly, it's a vehicle which takes off and lands vertically. So VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. Second, it's for sure electrical, for reasons of environment, noise, and so on, which is a very big challenge. Third, it's clearly autonomous, because not everybody can be a pilot. And on top of that, there is already a lot of experience in flying autonomously. We basically always fly autonomously. Even commercial planes can fly completely autonomously. When I entered the Airbus group 25 years ago, there was a joke of the CEO, which was not a joke. We said, in a cockpit, there should be 2 persons, a dog and a pilot. Yes, the pilot to feed the dog, and the dog to prevent the pilot to touch any comment. And it's not a joke. It's not a joke. So, autonomous, probably shared. Is it a flying vehicle or is it a service? Connected. That's what we call a flying car. And in some way, we are absolutely convinced that it's easier to develop. I'm not saying cheaper, but it's easier to develop than, I would say, a fully autonomous car. Why? Because you can organize the airspace. And then the level of, quote, intelligence which is needed to allow autonomy is not at all the same as a level of intelligence which is necessary to cope with a child crossing the road, identification, I don't know, of a pig, a wild pig. Anyway, it's much easier. And by the way, probably also in some way then easier to certify. Because today, the way we fly in the aeronautic industry is through deterministic models. What I mean is that the behavior of the, quote, artificial intelligence, I'm not sure that we can speak about artificial intelligence in that case, but the behavior of the intelligence is perfectly known. The results are perfectly known and mechanical. There is no machine learning. And that's very important. And you can do that only when the environment is quite, quote, simple to modelize. The day you enter into non-deterministic approaches, then you have a lot of trouble for certification. So I don't want to anticipate about the issues, but at least this is what we see as that's the definition of a flying car. And in some way, maybe it's easier to have a fully autonomous flying car than a fully autonomous land vehicle.
So I haven't spent much time looking at flying cars. Fascinating space. I do agree with you that the problem is not perception and planning, et cetera, until you have a sky full of cars. The question, so one of the reasons I don't like drones is weight to power ratio and fly time. 30 minutes, best they can do, maybe 35. How is that being addressed currently? Because I weigh slightly more than a box of books from Amazon.
Yeah, well, we are then opening the topic of challenges, which I think it's very interesting. The energy is clearly one of the key challenges. Today, probably, and we will try to demonstrate that, we, not Airbus Venture, our brother Airbus, will try to demonstrate that normally at the end of the year. We probably can fly for a while on a short distance.
How long is a while?
Well, I don't want to.
5 minutes?
No.
Is it 15 minutes?
I don't want to enter into these debates, but it's consistent with the urban environment. That's what I mean.
Okay. So
Okay?
the Uber this morning told me it would take half an hour to get here. Clearly, I have to deal with a lot of London traffic.
Yeah.
But point to point, as the crow flies,
Yeah.
is clearly much quicker. Kind of like the catapult
Yeah.
on City Mapper. 2 minutes and you're there.
So I think what is absolutely clear is that the efficiency of the battery and then of the electric propulsion will be one of the key drivers of the evolution. There will be increments. But what we have also to take into account is that those flying cars will be used in the urban environment. They will not be used for medium or long distance. So I think this makes probably the model more realistic. But for sure, we are aware that today, this is a big challenge. We will start with short distance, short flying time, and by the way, if there are in this room people who can propose some interesting new types of electric batteries or devices, I open my books. There will be an evolution on this topic.
There's one company, I think they're based out of Munich.
Lilium.
Yeah. Are you involved in that?
We are not investor in Lilium. We know them very well.
Sure.
But that's another type, I would say, of vehicle. But we are very much interested in batteries. Yes.
I'm interested in batteries as well.
And we could have something in common on that.
Yeah, on batteries for sure. My phone still doesn't even last the whole day. Much less fly me across the city.
So Jason, just coming back to autonomous vehicles and your determination to extend that list of deals that have been done in this area. One area where I think the hype might need to be sort of toned down slightly is the public readiness to use autonomous vehicles, because ultimately they're going to work in a city environment. If you restrict the ability of the individual driver, the cyclist, the pedestrian, so anyone who travels on the the DLR, who is going out to Canary Wharf for some reason this week, will be travelling on an autonomous vehicle. The DLR has no train driver. But that's possible because the DLR is geofenced, and no bike or kid or kite or a bird maybe, but nothing can really restrict its path. Now, in order to get safe autonomous vehicles in cities, you're going to have to do a geofencing, which I think may meet resistance.
So some of the systems and the early prototypes that I've seen are working on a geofenced basis. So the vehicle itself isn't quite as smart as it would need to be in a chaotic urban environment like central London. Right. Central London is probably one of the hardest environments that a fully autonomous vehicle would ever have to deal with. It's pretty close to pure chaos, especially close to Parliament or Piccadilly Circus, where you have large groups of Italians walking out to the middle of the road, not looking the right way.
I was going to say,
this is
go to Rome if you want some more chaos.
Yeah, this is problematic. And I think that one of the other things I was talking about at dinner last night is the problem of human-robot interaction. Like a lot of thought hasn't been given to that yet and how it actually works. So if I'm trying to cross the road and you're driving up, you actually see me standing there between two vehicles, and you know that I'm not going to jump out in front of you. But an autonomous vehicle, maybe not. Or maybe I am going to jump out in front of you, and I can look at you, and I can probably see you and look at you in the eye, and you'll give me the old, "That's all right, go across. You're fine. I'm going to slow down a little bit. You got it. It's all good." Are we going to have signs on top of the car? Did you go, "You're good"? Or maybe he's going to wink at me? Or what? How's that going to happen? Maybe a little hand. Okay, you laugh, but it's actually very true. So it's not even just the system itself, it's human-robot interaction. And then one of the other issues with the dense urban environment is the pure computation requirement for the vehicle to understand all of the inputs and all of these sensors and fusing it in real time while it's driving 30 miles an hour is very, very complicated. Most of the systems I've seen, they actually drive pretty slowly.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have 4 supercomputers in the back to do all the processing.
So if we talk about areas of the world where you expect to see autonomous vehicles and flying cars take off perhaps first, is that something you've given some thought? We see experiments, I think, that are, I shouldn't call them experiments, makes them sound dangerous, but there'll be trials and demonstrations of flying vehicles in Dubai, I believe. And autonomous vehicle trials are taking place in many parts of California. Mm-hmm. But is this something that we perhaps might more likely see in the developed world rather than, or indeed in the developing world?
I think there will be a cost factor, which at least for flying vehicles should not be minimized. So this will limit, and probably it's something good, because if we would not limit, then we would crowd the air, which would be a pity. But the cost factor would be, I think, a natural limitation. And so I guess this will develop in particularly crowded cities of the developed or developing world. It's not just by chance that we have another part of Airbus, our cousin, I would say, in Auque, has developed an experiment, which is now more than an experiment, with helicopters in Brazil, which is a kind of sharing. It's not nothing autonomous today, but it's a prefiguration. It's a sharing. It's a kind of, they hate to say that, but it's a kind of Uber for helicopters. It's called VOOM. So I think to try to answer your question, probably this will start with very crowded cities, where regulators, by the way, will be open-minded. I'm not saying taking risk, but open-minded. I understand that cities like Singapore, for instance, are very, very open-minded. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there could be huge potential in Beijing. So I think this will be the influence of both regulator and the need for decongestioning of the traffic, which will push the development.
For autonomous, so the companies that I've talked to that I think are probably going to be closest to commercial reality are trucking solutions, so transportation solutions that aren't urban driven. So moving materials from London to Manchester, but using those roads, highway mode, as it were. It's a much easier problem to solve, again, from a mathematical perspective. And you're not going to have as many dogs and kites and stray balls, et cetera, in the road. I think that's probably going to be the first true scale implementation of an autonomous vehicle.
Okay.
In many senses, Tesla, they have highway mode already. Push the autopilot and you're fine. So those are much easier problems to solve. Dense urban environment, so it's exactly the opposite of flying cars. Get far away from people.
Okay. So Francois, you mentioned that if there's anyone here today with a particularly exciting battery technology, then you'd like to hear from them.
Yes.
Can we identify some of the other solutions that are required? And the top of my list might be cybersecurity for both of you.
Air traffic management.
Air traffic management.
Yeah, the inclusion of those vehicles, at least the flying ones, in the global air traffic management. Already, as you know very well, it's not a given, it's a British understatement, to include UAVs into the air traffic management. There are a lot of restrictions for UAVs. So to allow flying cars to effectively work, these would need, I think, quite substantial reshuffle of the air traffic management and optimization of the air routes. So that's a substantial topic.
How about anti-flying car technologies? Because if a rogue drone is a problem, I can only imagine what a rogue car would be.
Yeah. Well, security, of course, will be key, as it is already the case, because hacking is a topic. The more you multiply flying objects, connected flying objects, the more you multiply the possibility of hacking by definition, and everybody knows that by definition, you cannot prevent 100% hacking. You just can minimize the risk. So that's an issue. Another appeal for cyber security experts on those connected flying objects.
Excellent. Well, we're nearly, I think, all ready for a cup of coffee. So I'd like to thank Francois and Jason for this great contribution. I think it's set us up very well for some of the sessions we'll be seeing today and tomorrow. We have 2 sessions on energy, one this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we'll be back here about the same time tomorrow with BP Ventures. I don't know if we'll be able to find you that novel battery, but we'll see what we can do.
Good.
We'll also be looking at advanced manufacturing, as I think Tim mentioned earlier, after the coffee break, looking or discussing, no doubt, the importance of lightweight materials, which are required, I think, both for the future of autonomous vehicles and for flying cars. So I hope you've found that as stimulating as me. As suspected, we didn't come to a particularly dramatic denouement. That's because I think there's a lot of work to be done, and it's not yet ready. The Hollywood scripts are exciting, but the reality is more about hard work and hard venturing decisions. So, yeah, please join me in thanking Francois and Jason for their contribution.